All right. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Mr. Islam Answers Back show. Man, it's been a while since I did the last show. I know, unfortunately, we keep having these long distances between the time I get to do shows. So, again, don't forget to, right before we start, don't forget to like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not a subscriber, please go on ahead and make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that notification button, that bell, so that way whenever I do a live show, you can help us. You'll be notified. And as I always say, don't forget to support the platform. In the information area of this video, or in the description area of this video, you will see that there are a number of links where you can support this channel by either, sending a quick show of support through the Cash App, utilizing our Patreon. You can join our Patreon and become a Patreon supporter. If you're into cryptocurrencies, I have options where you can support us through some cryptocurrencies, particularly the Brave, the cryptocurrency known as Brave, which has been integrated into YouTube and into Twitter, and you can donate your support through the cryptocurrency using the Brave token. There are some other options. You can purchase our book, right? Our book, you can either purchase the paperback copy or the ebook, which is available on Amazon.com. Matter of fact, connected with this topic, in my book, I actually have a chapter in my book which deals with this very subject here. So if you would like to have this information on hand for yourself, purchase our book, which is available in the description of this video. And in the book, we actually have a chapter where we actually have this subject being addressed, which is what did the followers of Jesus believe about him, right? His earliest followers. What did they say about it? What did they believe about him? So our book would definitely help you to have this information. But if not, like I said, you can join our Patreon, and we are going to add the notes. We'll add the notes to our Patreon supporters, so that way you have access to this. But you have to become a Patreon supporter to get access to that exclusive content. All right. So hopefully with everyone there, that gives you guys the options that you need to support and help out the platform. We greatly appreciate it. So go on ahead and avail yourself of those. So don't forget, give a thumbs up to the video, like the video. Don't forget to copy and paste and share it on your social media. That helps us spread the word around as well. All right, welcome false sects like Shia, etc. Welcome, dropping by. Appreciate you dropping by. All right. So before we begin, like I always do, let me send out a couple of quick tweets on my Twitter. I already put it on Instagram. So people on Instagram got word that we're doing the show live. What else? So we got that there. The Twitter, we did that. What else? Oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to try something also new tonight as well. I'm going to integrate in my my Pal Talk. Right, matter of fact, let me put the mic on that right there. I'm integrating the live show into my Pal Talk tonight as well. So what we're going to try to do is we'll talk about the subject, and then after that, if anybody wants to ask any questions or comments or whatever, you're going to have to join Pal Talk, right? Go to paltalk.com. If you have an account, sign in, go to the social issues area, and you will see our room entitled Islam Answers Back Live Discussion and Rebuttals. And if you want to make a comment there, you can do that. What we'll try to do later in the future is, we will see if we can upgrade our system and get it where we can have, because I've seen other YouTubers where they have people can call into the show and stuff like that. So perhaps in the future, if I can get some equipment with your support, we'll be able to buy those. I seen it too. I seen it the other day. I was at this Micro Center store, and I seen that they have all these, like this kind of like I don't know what to call it, like switchboard or something like that, where, you know, it has all these different buttons and stuff like that, and you can like allow people to, you know, to call in, and you can press the button. So I need to upgrade to that equipment. So with your support, inshallah, I may be able to do that. And of course, I may be able to do more shows with your support. So please go on ahead and support the show, support the platform. So like I said, I got this going live on my in my PayPal talk room. So you can either listen there and chime in from there if you like, and right here, of course, streaming live on YouTube. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the subject. So as you see, the title is Jesus's first followers did not believe he was God, and here is the proof. Right, I'm going to present the proof to show you that according to their own book, what they believe in, it shows that the earliest followers, the first people who believed in him and followed Jesus, they did not believe that he was God. Now, further, this information can be further looked upon. Like Bart Ehrman has a book on it. I think it's called How Jesus Became God, correct? Right, Bart Ehrman has a book, How Jesus Became God. He talks about that, you know, with more in a more historical detail, right? He talks about that. Wa alaikum salam, Birdness, right? He talks about that in more historical detail. But what I'm going to do is just keep it real simple for you, right? I'm going to do this real simple. I'm going to show you evidence from their own book, from the Christians' own scriptures, that the earliest followers of Jesus clearly did not believe that he was God. And it's interesting because I was just having a sort of back and forth on Instagram with a guy about this subject, right? And it's funny because he uses, like most Christians do, they like to use the enemies of Jesus's. He likes to use the enemies of Jesus, what they claim about him, you know, where they claim he was committing blasphemy, right? The Jews at the time supposedly claiming that Jesus was committing blasphemy, claiming that he was claiming to be equal to God and all this kind of stuff like that, right? So I say, well, look, why would you take, as I always say, why would you take the words of the enemies of a man rather than his own followers and supporters? So I showed him the places which I'm going to show you tonight, where the followers of the alleged followers of Jesus in the Bible, they don't believe that he's God, right? They don't believe that he's God. So I said, why don't you take that? Guess what he told me? He said, oh, well, they didn't understand what he was saying. So I'm like, wait a minute. So you telling me the enemies of Jesus, they understood him supposedly, right? But his own followers, the people who believed in him, the people who supported him, they didn't understand him. But you take the word of the enemies of Jesus. Isn't it more known in history that the enemies of a person are more apt to lie about the person, right? They're more likely to lie about you. They're more likely to slander you. They're more likely to misrepresent who you were rather than your own followers. I mean, your own followers can do that too. Like they can over exaggerate about you and stuff like that, right? But it's more likely that the followers of a man are going to tell you what they believed about him, and they're not going to follow. They're not going to repeat the false charges of the enemies. Your enemies are known to lie about you, to slander you, etc. Right? So why would you take their word for it over his followers? And that was the guy's response. That well, these people, they didn't really understand what he was saying. Like, what do you mean? How could you say that they didn't understand, but supposedly the enemies of Jesus understood? No, sir, it's the other way around. The enemies didn't understand him or misrepresented what he was saying, and his followers did understand him. Right? So let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Right? Wa alaikum salam. Welcome. All right. So let's get right into it, everybody. Let's get right into this. Okay. And let's see. So we're going to start off with the first example. Right. The first example of this. The first example of this is, as you see on the screen. Right, the first example, as you see on the screen, is Matthew chapter 21, verse 11. Right? Matthew chapter 21, 11. So notice what it says. When Jesus had, verse 11 says, the crowds answered. What are they saying? Who are they saying? They saying, this is Jesus. Who? Who is he? The prophet. from Nazareth in Galilee. They don't say this is the God. This is God right here. No, the crowd answered, this is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee. Right? They don't believe that he is God. These are the first people, according to their Bible. This is the story of Jesus. And this is clearly the first people who believe in him. Right? This is not the people who come hundreds of years later. These are supposed to be the people who were right there with him at his time period when he was alive, allegedly. And what do they say he was? What do they believe him? They believe that what? They say this is Jesus the prophet. Not Jesus the God. Jesus the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee. And notice it says the crowds answered. The crowds are saying this, not a small group of people, not a few people. The crowds are saying that this is Jesus the prophet. Okay? So how do you take the words of the enemies of Jesus who claim that he was committing blasphemy and all, even though he refutes them in those places where where the scribes and Pharisees charge him with blasphemy and all this stuff like that? He refutes them. He never accepts their claim. He doesn't say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I said it. No, he refutes them in these places. But tonight, like I said, tonight we're dealing with what the first followers of him, his alleged first followers, they did not believe he was God, as you can see right here. Right? They didn't believe he was God. What's this? I don't know what this Abdullah Isa, what you're saying. Servant. Yeah, that's his name. Servant Abdullah Isa. Servant God. Servant of God Isa. Huh? All black messengers and prophets and messiahs got shirt delivered to them in the Bible. Is that what you're saying? Okay. I'm not sure. But all right, I'll allow that to show. What's this? All right. Let's continue on. So that's what we are, right? Let's go to the next example in the same chapter 21. Once again, what happens? This is when the chief priest and Pharisees were trying to get Jesus, right? It says they wanted to arrest him. They wanted to arrest him. Now, these are his enemies. They want to arrest him. But it says they were afraid of the crowds, the multitude, meaning the large groups of people, the large majority of the people. Why? Why does it say? It says they looked for a way to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowd because what? The people who believe in Jesus, not his enemies, the people held that he was a prophet. They did not believe he was God. They did not believe that that was God. They believed that he was a prophet. His first believers, his first followers, they believed he was a prophet. Why does the Christian, whenever they try to make the argument about Jesus, they always use the example of the enemies of Jesus? How many Muslims have had discussions with Christians? And they instead, in an attempt to prove that Jesus is what the Christians of today believe he is, they go and tell you what the enemies of Jesus said. Oh, look here. The Jews said he was claiming to be God. Look here. The scribes and Pharisees said he was guilty of blasphemy. Look here. The scribes and Pharisees said that he was claiming to be equal with God, right? They always use the enemies of Jesus' words. Why don't they ever? I have never had a discussion with a Christian or a debate, as far as I can recall, and they ever use these verses. You know why they don't use these verses? Because they don't support them, obviously. I have never had a Christian say, oh, well, look, yeah, the followers of Jesus thought he was a prophet. They never use these verses. You will see that every time they argue this point, they always will go to the enemies. They will go and say, look, the scribes and the Pharisees said Jesus was committing blasphemy. The scribes and Pharisees said he was claiming to be equal with God. Why are you quoting the enemies of a man to make your argument rather than your rather than quoting your fellow brothers in Christ from the early time? Why would you quote his enemies? Well, you know why? Because the enemies of him are falsely charging him, and that supports their false belief that he's God. But that doesn't make sense. If you're a Christian, why wouldn't you quote your earliest Christian brothers who, as you see right here, they said he was a prophet? Today, you say he's God. Back then, your brothers in Christ, back then, they said he was a prophet, though. As you can see right here, they said he was a prophet. They didn't think he was God, right? They didn't think he was God. They said he was a prophet. So how you quoting the enemies of Christ is an amazing thing to me, that you would quote them rather than the people who believed in him, right? Rather than the people who believed. The people who believed in him, they didn't say he was God. As you see here, they said he was a prophet. Plain and simple. Plain and simple, clear as day. Right? Clear as day. Let's continue. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. This is Matthew chapter 9, verse 8. Once again, notice here that they don't believe Jesus is God. Let's read it here. Let me give you some context. Here, Jesus performs a miracle, right? He performs a miracle. Right, as you see here, as you see right here, it says he heals a paralytic person. So the people, and so here's the context. The people witness that Jesus performs a miracle and heals this paralytic person. So when he heals them, what do they say? They don't say, oh, wow, look, God. No, look what they say. It says, when the crowd saw this, they were filled with awe, and they praised God who had given such authority to man. So they recognize that God gave Jesus the power to heal this paralytic man. They didn't think that Jesus was God right there, standing right there himself, God, and he healed the man. No, they gave praise to God who had given such authority to man. These are the people, if we're going to follow the Christian belief, and believe, if we're going to accept, which we don't accept, so to make that point clear, but for the sake of argument, the Christians believe that this is the story of Jesus, and it's telling the story of how he, did his ministry, etc., from when he was a young child, born to a young child, etc. So this means at this particular point in the Christian story, this is when Jesus, these are his earliest followers. These would be the people who would be considered his earliest followers, who were there at his time, who got to witness him speak and see him perform miracles. They believe that he's a man who's a prophet. They believe that he's a man who God had given authority to. They do not believe that he is God himself, as you can see here, according to the Christians' own writings. The earliest Christians, their earliest followers, believers in Christ or Jesus, did not say he was God himself. As you saw, they said he was a prophet. And here, once again, they believe that God had given him authority. They don't believe that Jesus is God himself. Matthew chapter 9, verse 8. The crowd saw this. And this is the key point that makes the point even stronger, because here they're witnessing perform miracles. That's another argument that the Christians like to use, right? They like to take miracles that Jesus performed and act like that makes him God. Oh, look, he walked on water. Oh, he healed the blind. He healed the sick. That's proof that he's God. No, it's not proof that he's God. No, it's not proof that he's God. That's proof, as the verse says, that God can give man the authority to perform miracles. Because if that makes you God, then Moses is God. Because Moses was able to, make the stick turn into a snake. Moses was able to make the Red Sea part. How did he do it, though? He did it with God's permission. And that's exactly what the Quran says when it speaks about Jesus, that Jesus was able to do these things with God's permission. He doesn't do it on his own. Moses didn't do it on his own. So performing miracles does not make you God. It just shows that God has given you authority to perform such. And that's what the people believe right here. Notice, these are the people who believe in Jesus. These are the people who support him. These are not his enemies. I never understand. Well, I understand why they do it. They do it because that's the only argument they have, that they have to go to the enemies of Jesus to claim that he is what they believe he is. But you don't do it like that, do you? You don't go to people's enemies. Just like in today's court, when a person wants to, when a lawyer for who's defending a person wants to show character about the person, they bring in his people who know him, his friends, his family members, his associates, his co-workers, so that they can say, yeah, I work with so-and-so, he's a good person. Yeah, I work with so-and-so, he's my brother, he's my brother, he's known as a good man. They bring your mother in, your father, your children, your co-workers, friends, neighbors, to tell your good character. They don't bring enemies to talk about you, because it's understood your enemies have a motive to slander you. Your enemies have a motive to talk bad about you. So a judge would be like, well, these people don't like you. They're your enemies. You see? So they bring in people who know you, so they can give a good character witness to you. He's a good man. I know him. He's my neighbor. He's a good person. He's a co-worker. I work with him. He's a good person. Your children. Yeah, my dad is a good man. He takes care of us. Your wife, whoever. They bring in people who are on your side. They don't go to enemies to prove who you are. I always give the example like with Obama, when Obama was president. The Tea Party and the Republican Party were trying to claim that Obama was a Muslim, right? As if being Muslim is bad. But in their minds, it was a negative thing. So they were trying to say Obama was a Muslim. But what did Obama's church tell us? The people at Obama's church said he was a Christian, right? So I would go with that rather than the Tea Party and the Republican Party who were enemies to Obama. I'm not going to take their word for it. If you look back on history 100 years from now, right, and you're reading about Obama being the president, are you going to listen to the Tea Party and believe them in history and say, oh yeah, that president back in 2012, 2016 or whatever, he was a he was a Muslim. Well, how you figure that? Well, the people who hated him, the Tea Party, the Republican, they said he was a Muslim. No, history is not going to record that as factual. You're going to look to his people who believed in him. Say, well, what did the people who followed Obama, what did they say? Oh, well, his church friends said he was a Christian with them. Oh, okay. Well, then that's what he was. Then he's going down in history as being a Christian president. Right? You don't go to the enemies of a person. That doesn't make any sense. But in their context, it makes sense because that's the only proof that they can use to try to make you believe that he was who they believe he is today. But it's false. It's not right. Because his own followers, as you read here, they believe that he was a prophet. They believe that he was a man that God had given authority to. Notice the point is real strong here because they witness him perform the miracle. And after witnessing the miracle, they don't believe that he's God. They believe that he is a man who God had given authority to. So they give the praise to God who had given such authority to a man. It's clear. It's clear. It's clear. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Here's another one. Right now, here's another one because this one goes closer to his followers. Right. This is one of his this is him talking to his disciples. Right. This is him talking to his disciples now. Right. So the context here is, as you see right here on the side. Right. See where my cursor's at. So here it says that basically the different people are saying stuff about Jesus. Right. They're saying things about him. So here Jesus says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Who are the people? What are the people saying? Right? What are the people saying? Right? Next verse. So his disciples replied, check this out. Notice what the people are saying. Some say that you're John the Baptist. Others say you're Elijah. And still others, you're either Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Notice none of them say they think you're God. In every example, they think he is who? He's like basically one of the prophets. He's John the Baptist, a prophet. He's Elijah, a prophet. Others say Jeremiah, a prophet, or one of the other prophets. Notice they don't say people say you're God. None of the examples of what the disciples say, that what the people are saying, none of them say, well, some of the people think you're God. Some think you're John the Baptist. Some think you're Yahweh. Some think you're God in human form. Notice none of the people think that, according to the disciples. None of the people think that he's God. They think he's either one. They all think he's obviously one of the prophets. He's John the Baptist. He's Elijah returned. He's Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. The people, the disciples don't say, well, some of the people think you're God. Some of the people think you're God in human form. No, it's obvious what the disciples tell him. The people obviously think that he's one of the various prophets. You see that? Again, these are the earliest followers and believers in him. And the disciples show that nobody's telling us that he's God. Nobody's telling us that he's God. The disciples say clearly that the various peoples think that you are obviously one of the prophets. John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, or one of the other ones. But nobody says they think that you're God, Jesus. So let's go further. What now he's going to ask his direct disciples what they think he is. Look at the next verse. So now Jesus, okay, cool. But what about you? He asks. Who do you say that I am? Oh, well, this is good, right? Because now he's asking his most closest followers, which is amongst his 12 disciples right here, right? Now he's asking his closest disciples what they think, right? So now he's going to his closest ones. So maybe you might say, well, yeah, the other people, they didn't really know him, but his closest disciples, they knew who he was. Okay, well, let's see what they say. So he says, well, what about you? He asked, who do you say that I am? Let's see the answer. The answer is Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Notice he doesn't say you are God in human form. You are God himself. No, he says you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. He doesn't say you are the living God yourself. You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So he doesn't believe Jesus is God either. He doesn't believe Jesus is God either. He believes that he's the Messiah, the Son of, but not the God himself, the Son of. I'm making that point. You see that? Peter does not believe Jesus is God either. He believes that he is the Messiah, which everybody should know. That means the anointed. So when Peter says the Messiah, that means he believed Jesus is anointed of God, but not God himself. And the next statement makes that clear too, that he's the son of. I always use this argument. If you are the son of the king, you're not the king. If you're the son of the president, you're not the president. Everybody understand that, right? If you're the son of the king, you're not the king. You're the son of the king, plain and simple. If you're the son of the president, you're not the president yourself. You're just the son of the president. So here he says you're the son of the living God. Okay, if he's the son of the living God, then he's not God, the God. He's just the son of the God. Right? And of course, please don't try to use this as some kind of argument that says, oh, so you believe he's the son of God? No, because your Bible explains what son of God means. Romans chapter 8, verse 14, right? Even Jesus explains what son of God means as well, because he says, everybody who does the will of my Father, right? You are also my brothers and my sisters, etc. Meaning those who do the will of God, you're the children of God. This is the Christian way of speaking. It doesn't mean that God somehow gave, is your biological father or something of this sort. It's more of a spiritual connotation to it. It's metaphoric, right? So the Bible explains what son of God means. So I don't want to see anybody come and say, oh, so Mr. Islam, you agree that he's the son of God, right? No, I'm just using your book to show you that no matter what you think, it still doesn't say he's God. The argument is he God? Which is another crazy thing, that the Christian on the one hand tells us that he's God, but then on the other hand, you're telling us he's the son of God. That's interesting, right? How is he God, but yet then you tell me he's the son of God? Which is it? If he's the son of God, then he obviously is not God. If he's God, then how can he be the son of God when he's supposed to be God himself? Doesn't make any sense, right? I repeat, on the one hand, you guys tell us that he's God, right? But then on the other hand, you tell us that he's the son of God. Well, which is it? If he's the son of God, then how is he God? And if he is God himself, then how can he be referred to as the son of God when he is supposed to be God himself? How can he be the son of himself? It's a big conundrum and it doesn't make any sense. So please don't try to make some argument and saying, so you agree he's the son? No, I'm just using this to show you how your belief is not supported. That here is one of Jesus's followers, allegedly, and he doesn't believe that Jesus is God. Notice when Jesus asked him, who do you say that I am? He doesn't say, I say that you're God, Jesus. Instead, he says, no, he says, I say you are the Messiah, the son of the living God. He doesn't say, I believe that you are the Messiah, God in person. I believe that you are the Messiah, God himself standing right in front of my eyes. No, he says, I believe that you are the Messiah, the son of the living God. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I know the heater turned on, so hopefully you can hear me. All right. Let me take a quick look at the comments. Let's see what's going on in the comments. Let me see, anybody on? No. All right. I don't know what you guys are talking about there. What's that discussion here that's going on in the text here? Okay, you guys seem like you're talking about something else, right? Okay, no problem. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue on. Let us continue on. All right, that was what Matthew, yeah, right here. Right, so again, so right there, here is one of Jesus's close followers, Peter, and he says, and notice here, let's take a look at the next verse too, because the next verse makes it clear that Peter is not wrong according to the book. According to the book, Peter's not wrong. Here, Jesus tells Peter, look, it says, Jesus replied, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. So according to this, Jesus says, Peter, you're right. Peter's not mistaken. Peter's not mistaken according to this. He agrees with Peter. He says, Peter, you know what? You're right. You got it right. God revealed that to you. That I'm not God. I'm the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And only God could have revealed that to you. So notice Peter does not say that you are God yourself. All right. Let's continue on. Let's go down to Luke chapter 7, verse 12. Once again, everybody, notice here again, the context is Jesus performs a miracle again. Right? Here, a person was dead. Let's read the context here, right? Luke chapter 7, verse 12. It says, as he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And once again, a large crowd is there. A large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord, Jesus has the title of Lord. It doesn't mean he's Lord God. So again, don't misrepresent that, because remember, Jesus is the teacher. He's their master. So they refer to him as a Lord. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, don't cry. And it won't matter, because the rest of the verse, the rest of it is going to prove that he's not God anyway, right? Then he went up and touched the bier or coffin they were carrying him on, and the bearer stood still. He said, young man, I say to you, get up. The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. All right, let's keep going. Next verse. They were filled with awe. And what did they do, everybody? They praised God. Are they praising Jesus? Well, no, because the next statement makes it clear that just like the other one I showed you where the people praise God for sending or giving authority to such man, it's the same thing here. Look what it says. It says they were all filled with awe and praised God, not Jesus, because what? And what they say, a great prophet has appeared among us. So they're praising God, like in the other one I showed you, not because they believe that Jesus is God himself. No, to them, he's a prophet. They're praising God because God has allowed a great prophet to appear among us. And then it says, and so they said, God has come to help his people, i.e. through the prophet. Don't misunderstand this. They're not saying it. It's clear that they don't believe Jesus is God. They're praising God because what? Because he's a great prophet that has appeared among us. They said God has come to help his people through this prophet, obviously. Obviously, it is clear the context means that God has visited his people through this prophet. The prophet is not God himself. The prophet is a great prophet. And through this prophet, God has, in this sense, visited his people or helped his people through this prophet. So it's clear they do not believe that Jesus is God. They believe that he is what? A great prophet, as it says right there. A great prophet. And we can further show you that they don't believe he's God. Even from this, right? Let's go to the next evidence. Luke chapter 24, verse 19. Luke chapter 24, verse 19. Here, the context here is that this is supposed to be after the supposed crucifixion of Jesus, right? And here he is, as the story says, if you read the context, you can read the context on your own, where Jesus is, they say he is disguised as the gardener. So they don't recognize him. This is after the resurrection, right? After the alleged resurrection, he goes back to his followers. They don't recognize him. It says they think he's the gardener. And they are talking about what had happened with Jesus. So as you see here, look over here, verse 18, it says one of them named Cleopas asked him, because Jesus goes to them, he says, hey, what are you guys talking about, man? I hear you guys talking. What are you talking about? And they obviously don't recognize him because, again, if you read the context, you can see for yourself. If you go back further, a little bit past these verses, it says that they think he's the gardener. So obviously he's disguised as the gardener or something of this sort. So they're unable to recognize that Jesus is right there talking to them. So he asked them what they're talking about. So one of them, who was a believer in Jesus, right, a follower of Jesus, he asked him, are you only a visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in recent days? So Jesus says, what things? He asked. And what do they say? It says he says, what things? He asked. And they say, about Jesus of Nazareth. They replied. What do they say, everybody? Look what they say. He was a prophet. They don't say he was a god. They don't say he was God in person. They don't say he was Yahweh. None of those things they say. They say what? They say he was a prophet. Powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. They don't say he was a man who was God before the people. No, he was a prophet. Powerful in word and deed before God, or in front of God and all the people. So even after his supposed alleged crucifixion, they still do not believe that he was God. What do they say he was? They're telling Jesus, of course they don't recognize him, but they're telling him what? That he was a prophet, man. They're like, you didn't hear the story, man? Yeah, it was this guy, Jesus from Nazareth. He was a prophet. They're still not saying that he was God. So again, his earliest followers, the earliest believers in Jesus, they did not believe he was God. They heard him speak. They saw him perform miracles. and they still did not believe he was God. His earliest followers did not believe he was God. The belief that Jesus is God was made up obviously later. Their own Bible shows you that the earliest believers in him, including his disciples, did not believe that he was God. Their own book is showing you, the story of Jesus shows that the earliest believers in him did not believe he was God, even though they saw his miracles, even though they heard him speak. And notice, unlike the enemies of Jesus who said he was trying to be equal to God, who said he was committing blasphemy, notice, unlike his enemies, they heard him say they heard him say these things too, obviously, right? They heard him say these things also, but notice they understand him correctly. They heard all these words. They heard I and the Father are one. They heard all this stuff, just like the enemies of Christ. But notice, unlike the enemies of Christ who said that he was committing blasphemy, they say, no, he was a prophet who God had given authority to. He was a great prophet before God and the people. He was a prophet whom God did wonders and miracles through him. He was a prophet. He was a man who God gave authority to. Notice the difference between the believers in him and his enemies. His enemies misunderstood and misrepresented, twisted and distorted his words. But his followers understood him correctly. They understood that God deserves the praise and that this man was sent by God. This man is a great prophet sent by God, not who is God himself, but was sent by God. Is it not clear? Is it not clear? One more, and then we'll wrap it up. Here is the book of Acts, right? This is supposed to be the Acts of the Apostles after Jesus, right? Notice what they say. Again, this is after Jesus' time even more than after, right? This is later, a period of time later than after the crucifixion and resurrection, all of that, right? So notice what they still say about him. It says here, look, fellow Israelites, listen to this. Jesus of Nazareth was what? A god? No. Jesus of Nazareth was a man accredited by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs which God did among you through him. He was not God himself, everybody. Israelites, listen to what they tell Israelites. Listen, Jesus was a man accredited by God. He did miracles and wonders. God did these things through Jesus. He wasn't God himself. He didn't perform these miracles as God himself. No, God did this through him. He was accredited by God. Do you see this? He was endorsed by God. He was accredited by God. He was approved of by God, but he was not God himself. Remember, this is his apostles, his disciples saying this. This is after the crucifixion. This is after the resurrection. So now they got to see everything. So now they got to hear him preach and speak. They got to hear him. They got to see him perform miracles. They supposedly, right, according to the Christian belief, they supposedly saw him die, and after his death, he's resurrected. He appears to them. And notice, even then, they're still telling you that he's not God. They're still telling you that he was a man approved by God, a man accredited by God, that God performed the miracles through Jesus, but he wasn't God himself. He was a man. He was a man approved by God. Notice how they make the distinction between Jesus and God. They're telling you that Jesus was approved by God, that God had endorsed Jesus. Obviously, he wasn't God himself. If they're telling you that he was approved by God or endorsed by God, obviously he wasn't God himself, right? Because if he were God himself, he wouldn't need to be endorsed by God. It wouldn't make any sense to say that. Because if you're God yourself, you don't need any endorsements because you're who you are, right? You are who you are. So it wouldn't make any sense to say that, well, God was approved by God. What do you mean God is approved by God? He's already God. He doesn't need to be approved. But the fact that they're distinguishing between God and Jesus lets you know that they don't believe that he is God. And here, let me give you this argument here, because the guy that I was arguing with today on Instagram, he's trying to tell me that, well, his very disciples, they wrote down that no, they didn't. The Christian, you are misled to think that your New Testament was written by Jesus' disciples. It was not. None of those books are written by Jesus' disciples. This is a misunderstanding of Christians. Your own scholars tell you this. These books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, were not written by any of Jesus' disciples. So you can't say, oh, his disciples wrote that. No, they did not. These books were not written by his disciples. Your own scholars of the Bible tell you that. These names were just placed on these books. That they were not written by Matthew. It was not written by Mark. It was not written by Luke, John, and even Luke, by the way. Luke is not a disciple anyway, right? Luke is said to be historically, allegedly by history, is said to be a follower of Paul. So Luke is not a disciple anyway. But definitely Matthew, Mark, and John, it was not written by these people. This was not written by the hands of a disciple of Christ. And there's internal evidence to support that, because inside the book itself, it says that the disciples were fishermen, that they were uneducated fishermen. So clearly some uneducated fishermen could not have written this book that was written in this Greek, because they were uneducated. There was no public schools back then where everybody went to school and learned how to read and write and all that stuff like that. So it couldn't have been written by his disciples, even from the internal evidence that the book itself tells you that his followers were uneducated fishermen. Their occupation was fishing, catching fish, literally catching fish. They were not educated people, especially in Greek, to be writing some book in this classical Greek. And the scholars will tell you that yes, these things are written in classical Greek, meaning whoever wrote these people were educated people. They were educated, well-educated people who wrote these in Greek. So that negates his followers from being the writers of these documents. Not only that, we can also go outside. The archaeological evidence proves that it wasn't written by them, because they're dated to years later where these disciples would have been dead already. 125 years, his disciples didn't live that long. So they couldn't have written them. The earliest piece of a manuscript that you have is supposed to be a copy of John, right? Well, not even a copy of John, but a fragment of John, the famous P52, they say, right? The famous P52 fragment. It's the size of a credit card. It's the only evidence of the Gospel of John, or the earliest evidence of the Gospel of John. But it dates to 125 AD, which means it's virtually impossible that a disciple could have written that, because they definitely wasn't living that long in those days. So not only do you have the internal evidence to show that it wasn't them, because they were in the book itself, it said they were uneducated fishermen, but you also have the archaeological evidence that negates that they wrote it, because it dates to a time period where it's impossible that they lived that long. Right? So they couldn't have been written by any of the disciples, because they were already dead and gone by that time. So that negates the argument that his disciples wrote these things, and people try to say, oh, well, in John 1:1 and all of that. No, it wasn't written by any of his disciples. So only evidence we have is that whoever wrote these stories, in the story itself, as I just demonstrated in Matthew and in Luke and in the book of Acts, that in the story it shows us that the earliest believers and followers of Jesus, whether it was the masses of the people that believed in him or his direct 12 disciples, they did not say or believe that he was God, as I demonstrated. They believed he was a prophet, just like the rest of the people. Just like the crowds. They believed, like the crowds, that he was a prophet. Peter, when asked, as you saw, Peter did not say that you are the God, the living God standing right here before me. He said, no, you're the Messiah. You're the anointed of God, the Son of the living God. He didn't say you are the God, the living God yourself. The Son of, again, I repeat, the Son of doesn't mean that you are the person of who you are claiming to be the son of. I repeat, the son of the king is not the king. The son of the president is not the president. The son of God is not God. All right. So there we have it, everybody. The evidence is presented to you this night that the first followers of Jesus did not believe that he was God. Right? The first followers of Jesus did not believe that he was God. The evidence is clear. So it's obvious that this belief was made up later. Right? It's obvious, clear that this belief was made up later. And Bart Ehrman talks about that in his book, how Jesus became God or was made God, something of that title, right? But again, you don't have to go to Bart Ehrman's book if you don't want to. You can look at the evidence presented in their own book, where it shows you right there that they didn't believe. The earliest followers did not believe he was God, right there in their own book. Exactly, brother. False sex. Exactly. 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 So none of the arguments that they make hold ground, hold water. It's obviously clear that the idea that he was God was made up later. Later believers in Jesus made this up. But the first followers of him, they did not believe he was God. The first followers did not believe he was God. It was made up later. Right? It was made up later. All right. So with that, as I said, if nobody obviously wants to do that, but we'll try this again in the future. I'll have my Pal Talk room open, which I have it open right now, and I'm talking into the Pal Talk room as I'm talking to you guys right here on YouTube. But in the future, if anybody, Muslim or non-Muslim, wants to speak or ask a question, I will invite you to come to my Pal Talk room. Right? I will invite you to come to my Pal Talk room, which is Islam Answers Back. And you can then get on the mic and ask a question from there. Like I said, if we can in the future, we'll see if we can upgrade our equipment, and we'll be able to perhaps connect phone calls into the YouTube discussion, and we can do that. But with that, if you want to help me with that, help out and donate to the Cash App, or donate to the Patreon, or something of this sort, and help your brother, be able to achieve that, inshallah. Let me see something. Let me see if I can, let's see, I'll go to one of my previous videos, and I will put the stuff on the screen for you to see it. All right, yeah, let's do that right here. So we're gonna go to right there. So as you see on the screen right there, you can see where you can help out. Right, join our Patreon right there. The Cash App, if you want to Cash App, that's the Cash App right there. Help the brother out through the Cash App, which is directly. You can join my Patreon and support the Patreon. Support us through Patreon, and with that, excuse me, you get access to exclusive content that only Patreon supporters get. As I said, if you're into cryptocurrencies, you have the you can support us through the BAT tokens, the BAT tokens, basic attention tokens, what that stands for, and you can donate through that. Click that link, and that'll help me right there. You can get our book. Matter of fact, like I told you, my book, He Was Never God, How Scripture Shows Jesus Was Fully a Man and Not God. It talks about the subject that I talked about today. There is a chapter that I have which talks about this very subject. So you can get the book, and you can have this information from the book, right? If you want to get some self-defense videos, I also teach self-defense. I teach martial arts, self-defense. You can click on that link right there, the Amazon link, and that'll take you to there. My DVD is still available, Taqiyya, the lie they made against Islam. That helps us as well. So you have all these different options to support your brother, Mr. Islam Answers Back, and support us in the work that we do. So once again, don't forget to click the like button, share it with, on your social media, and please go on ahead and support us through the Cash App or the various other links that I have here, as you can see. All right, brothers and sisters, I definitely appreciate your support. Definitely appreciate you tuning in to the show today. All right. And alhamdulillah, yeah, the evidence, you're right. It's irrefutable, man. It's irrefutable. The only thing they can do is show you contradictions. And that's usually what happens. In their attempts to argue against these points, all they will show you is verses that contradict. And I'm like, bro, you're showing me something that contradicts what I just posted. So that's not an argument. If you post another verse from another place that tries to make it look like he's God or something like that, you're only posting me a contradiction, because these verses are clear. These verses are clear that he's not God. Right? So anything else is just a contradiction, which means that we can't conclusively conclude or agree, because which is it? Is it my verses or is it your verses? Right? Is it these verses here that says he's a prophet, or some other verse that you attempt to misrepresent that he's God? They both can't be true, because they're saying opposite things. So, you know what I mean? So what's this? Let's see. You say, this is good. I would like to summarize the references, perhaps. Yeah, so like I said, brother, in the book that I have, yeah, you can just get the verses. And I mean, as you saw, the verses are pretty much clear. They speak for themselves. Even if I didn't explain them, and you read them on their own, they clearly say what they say. The crowds took him for a prophet. They were afraid to arrest him because the people said he was a prophet. This is Jesus of Nazareth, the prophet from Galilee. So even if I didn't explain it, the verses themselves are clear. They already clearly say what they say. So if you want them more, like I said, in that, I would recommend you get my book. You and others who are watching this, get my book. You can click the link in the description and get my, it's in ebook form too. So if you want to get it right away, you don't want to wait for the mail to come, just get the electronic version, get the ebook version. You can get it right there, and you don't have to wait for it to come in the mail. Or or you can join my Patreon, and I will put these notes on Patreon. I'll just put the verses on Patreon, and you can just take them as they are. So either way, so either support me on Patreon, you can just have the verses with in a more simple form, or you can purchase my book and you have them in the book right there, so you can just utilize them as you please. And that'll in that form they're more simple. It's more simplistic. It's not me explaining it like I'm doing now. But you'll have the verses as they are. You can just use them like that. So whichever option you feel is better for you, I would say avail yourself of that opportunity. All right. So with that, alhamdulillah, for the people who tuned in, right? For the people who tuned in, I appreciate you tuning in and watching and listening. For those who watch later, same thing goes to you. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to support my platform. Help your brother out, right? As I always say, the other people who are speaking against Islam, they get support from their people. Whether it's David Wood or apostate prophet or Christian Prince, these people, they get support from their supporters. I say you should do the same, right? You want the Muslims to speak out. You want the Muslims to respond to them. Well, do the same thing and support the Muslims who are speaking out, who are bringing the arguments that help us refute them and rebuttal to their claim and debunk their claims. So, support me. I've been putting this work in for years. Support your brother. And you know what? On that note, I'm still trying to get 10 supporters, man. SubhanAllah, I'm still trying to get 10 Patreon supporters. This is amazing. I'm still trying to get 10, my brothers and sisters. I'm still trying to get, I've been asking for you guys, asking for 10 supporters for like the last several months. And I'm still at 7. MashaAllah, like I said, I'm grateful for what I get. But I mean, Really, I've been asking for 10 for a long time. You telling me there isn't 3 brothers or sisters? 3? That's a 3. You telling me that since the last several months there hasn't been 3 Muslim brothers and sisters who can support, who can become the 3 that I need to get me to 10? Really? Subhanallah, I can't believe that. That after all these several months, matter of fact, I've been asking you all year. It's a whole year now. We're already in the month of December. So I've been asking for a whole year, and you telling me that for a whole year there isn't 3 brothers or sisters who can support, so I can get 10 to Patreon supporters? I can't believe that. I can't believe that. Come on, man. I need 3 people. I need 3 consistent brothers and sisters to bring me up to 10 Patreon supporters. As I always tell you, look at David Woods to Patreon. He has, last show I did, he had like what? I think he was over 1,000. Right? I think he was over 1,000. I'm asking for 10. I've been asking, and really I've been asking for 10 for over a year, and to be honest with you. Right? I've really been asking for 10 supporters for over a year. I gave up for a while and then I restarted it asking again. So really I've been asking for more than a year for 10 Patreon supporters. Yet David Wood has 1,000, over 1,000. Apostate Prophet has 500 and something. And you know what's funny? I just saw today on YouTube, on Twitter, that Apostate Prophet is begging for money. He has a GoFundMe page. He claims that he's sick and his wife is sick and he needs I think he's trying to raise $10,000. I think he's trying to raise $10,000. Guess how much he has? He has half that money. He has raised $5,000. He already has 598 Patreon supporters, and I'm begging to get 10. And I'm trying to get 10. Just, you hear me? 10. Not 1,000. I mean, inshallah, yeah, that would be great. But I'm trying to take it stage by stage. I'm trying to get 10 Patreon supporters, while David Wood has over 1,000. Apostate Prophet over 500. Are you telling me that the Muslims we're not like the Christians? We can't support Muslims. We don't support our Muslim brothers and sisters who speak in this realm? Are you telling me that? Are you telling me that we as Muslims we're not as good as the Christians? We don't have the courage, we don't have the wherewithal to support our brothers like the Christians support theirs? Come on, brothers and sisters. I can't believe that, man. It's troubling for me to see that the Christians put their money where their mouth is, but the Muslims don't. And it ain't like, and I always say that it's not like we don't have it. It's not like we don't have it. With all these Muslim doctors, pharmacists, computer programmers, Muslims, you know, the statistics show that Muslims are in a lot of well-paying fields. So how is it that we can't put our money where our mouth is, yet the Christians who are not in these fields, but they have the faith enough to support their people? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? What say, Jack Jordan? You said you're talking to me. You said I'm too soft. What do you mean then? If you go on the offensive on David Wood, then maybe you'll reconsider. Well, actually, if you check my last few videos, I have been on including this video today. I've been on the offensive. In fact, the last few shows that I've done have all been on the offensive. I've been making arguments against the Christians. I said that too, as a matter of fact. So for the last several months, I've been on the offensive, actually, making videos like this one where we go, instead of defending against their attacks, which we've done plenty of, we're now on the offensive. This is an offensive video. Offensive, not offensive in the sense that it's insulting, offensive in the sense that we're making the move against them this time. So I don't mean offensive in the sense that we're being insulting. I mean offensive that we are on the, now we're making the arguments against them. So that's what I mean by offensive in that sense. So actually, yeah, we've actually been on the making the attacks against them or the arguments against them. My last several videos have all been where we're on the offensive. So I mean, yeah, but now I'll say this though. Now, if you mean that I should be like David Wood and be insulting and rude and making insulting comments about, then no, then that's not, why would I do that? Why should I have to do that to get my Muslim brothers to support me? That's not the character of a Muslim, of Islam. The character is what I'm doing. I don't have to be nasty and rude and to you and mock you. I bring the evidence. I get on you with the evidence. So if you mean that I should be like David Wood and be mocking the Christians and saying offensive things about them and about Jesus and all that, well, no, I'm not going to do like that. I'm not going to be like that in order to get you to support me. And you shouldn't support me if I was like that. If I was acting like that, you shouldn't support me, because that's not the character of Islam. You see what I'm saying? So you want to support me because I'm keeping the character of a Muslim, and I'm making my move by bringing the truthful arguments. I'm bringing the evidence to refute them, to debunk them. So for that reason, you should support me, because I'm doing better than David Wood. I'm not acting silly. I'm not putting on lipstick and dresses and, you know what I'm saying, trying to mock Jesus or mock the disciples or make offensive comments about Jesus or Peter or stuff like that. No, I'm not doing that. Instead, I make my arguments with the truth and the facts, academically. So you should support the brother for that. And of course, like the brother said earlier, that's what I present is irrefutable. Alhamdulillah, the brother said earlier, he said, man, that's irrefutable evidence, mashallah. Exactly. So support me because of that fact, brothers and sisters. All right. But enough of that, enough of that. I made my case, and I make my case at the end of every video. Support your brother. I'm doing the work. I have a track record. You've seen my debates. You've seen my debates. You see my videos. I've been doing this for years now, man. Since the early 2000s, your brother's been doing this. Actually, longer than that, really, because if you go check, on the internet, I was doing this stuff back since we had AOL, man. Back since AOL, back since CompuServe, and all those other programs that, yeah, since back then. I used to debate on the message boards on AOL online, AOL online. Can you believe that? Back in the mid 90s. I've been debating people since back then, mashallah. So inshallah. But yeah, like I said, if you appreciate the videos and the work that I do, and you want to see me do more videos on a consistent basis, the way David Wood does a video every night, the way Apostate Prophet does a video every night or every other night, you want me to be more consistent, I need your help. I'm gonna be honest with you, I need your help. I'm just being honest with you as your brother in Islam. In order for me to be able to do more videos, I need your financial support. I'm gonna be straight up. That's the only way I'll be able to do it. That's the only way I can free up my time to be able to do more videos on a consistent basis. So, that's all I ask for. Ameen. I ask Allah to make that happen, to touch your hearts and give me those 3 people that I need. Ameen. Inshallah, I ask that I can get up to even more, from 10 to 20. Ameen. From 20 to 50. Ameen. From 50 to 100. Ameen. From 100 to 500. Ameen. Inshallah. In fact, and from there, that we surpass the supporters that David Wood has. Ameen. That stuff will be used to make more videos, to improve my equipment. Like I said, I'll be able to get that switchboard thing where I could, add in, phone lines and people can call in and I can press the button and, you know what I mean? I'll improve my equipment with it. It'll allow me to do more videos on a consistent basis. It'll be used towards this effort here, inshallah. So yes, thank you, brother. May Allah help me with that. Ameen. And may Allah help the brothers and sisters out there. May He touch you and make you to be a supporter, to get me to that 10 and 20 and 50 and 100 and 1,000 supporters, inshallah. Ameen. All right, let me end it there. So again, tonight's topic, Jesus' first followers did not believe He was God. We presented the proof. Ameen. All right. So again, if you want to be able to have this information at your hands, get our ebook, or it's an ebook or paperback form. You can click it in the description of this video. So get the book. It's available on Amazon Kindle, and you can order it in paperback form, whichever option you feel is best for you. And as I said, I'll put the notes in my Patreon for my Patreon supporters as well. All right. The authors of Matthew and Luke had a copy of Mark and Q and changed things according to scholars. Yes, that's what they say. That's what they say. You know what I mean? That that whoever wrote those books, that they may have had a copy of Mark and they changed things around. And right, they talk about what they call the gospel Q, which is, you know, it's a theoretical thing, but they say that it appears that there was some other material out there and they call it the gospel Q. And what's interesting in gospel Q is, I've said this before, from what I've read about it, the gospel Q sounds like that I'm not saying it is, but it sounds like it might have been the Injil that Allah speaks about, because the scholars of that, they say that the gospel Q was supposed to be the sayings of Jesus only. So I said, again, I'm not saying that it is, don't misquote me, but to me it sounds like it may have been the gospel or the Injil that Allah gave to Jesus, if what they say is true, right? That if it is, or if it was the sayings of Jesus only, then perhaps again, I'm not saying that it is, perhaps maybe that was the Injil. Allahu Alam. Maybe, I don't know, but it sounds like that maybe that was, if what they're saying is true. It's likely, and he got in trouble. Did you know? Yeah, you know. So yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I heard Mike has gotten himself into trouble over the years for admitting things that are true, that he admitted, you know, that he couldn't hide anymore. He admitted certain things, and yeah, a lot of Christians got mad with him, right? But that's the truth, right? If we are honest, if we're going to say we're going to follow the truth, then we have to follow the truth wherever it leads us, right? We have to follow the truth wherever it leads us. And if you're a sincere person and you come across some truth and it goes against what you've commonly believed, you have to be honest and say, hey. So that's what I saw happen with Mike, that he has admitted certain things over the years and it got him in trouble with the Christians, because see, that's what happens. They just want you to keep repeating the lie no matter what. But if you're an honest man, you got to be like, hey man, the evidence says this. I got to go with the evidence. I can't keep hiding it. I can't keep, keeping it a secret. Follow the evidence. You know what I mean? You got to follow the evidence. So yeah. You know what I mean? So, all right. Yeah, I'm really going to end it this time. So again, we'll end it right there. Inshallah, I'll see if I can do a little bit more this week, since obviously there's going to be the Christians holidays. And so, I obviously won't be able to work all the time because of that. So let's see if I can get more in. But again, I need your support in order to do that. So please either support through the Patreon or hit up the Cash App. Buy my book, buy my martial arts self-defense DVDs, whichever way you feel best that you want to support me, inshallah. If Christians are, yeah, you're right, exactly, false sex, yes, exactly, sex. If they're honest, they want to becoming Muslims, man. So yeah, Muhammad, I've been hearing about that. what I'm gonna have to see exactly what he said. Because I've been hearing that lately, that some Christians are trying to promote what Yasser Qadi alleged. I don't know exactly what he said, so I can't speak on it. I'm gonna have to look into it. But I've been seeing that they claim that he said some things about Quran, and now they're trying to use that as argument. So I don't know. I have to see exactly what he said. He believes the Quran is preserved. Okay, well then, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. So obviously they're misquoting him or misrepresenting what he said. You know what I'm saying? So I'll look into it though. I'll see. But yeah, let me go ahead and end this off. Okay. Again, I appreciate you guys watching, and those who watch the recording later, thank you for watching and thank you for your support. I thank you ahead of time, and may Allah reward those who support, who are supporting me already, and for those who support in the future, may Allah reward you as well. All right. Assalamu alaikum. You guys have a good night or good morning or day, depending on where you are in the world. Assalamu alaikum.